What if the electric vehicle revolution isn't as easy as we thought? EVs promise a cleaner, greener future, but they're running into unexpected issues that could slow down their widespread use and are even getting banned. Whether it's fire risks in parking garages or problems with extreme weather, the path to an electric future is filled with hurdles. So what's really going on? And could it be that EVs aren't quite ready for the spotlight? Let's take a closer look at the surprising reasons behind these EV bans and what's really driving the decisions. Let's start with China, specifically Xinjiang province. China has been one of the biggest supporters of EVs, but even here, cracks are starting to show, especially in hotels. Hotels in Xinjiang are now banning electric cars from their enclosed parking lots. And yes, fire hazards are a big reason. Lithium-ion batteries in EVs can be a nightmare when they catch fire. They're prone to something called thermal runaway, which is a chain reaction that's almost impossible to stop. Traditional fire extinguishers don't work, and using water, that just makes things worse. This isn't just theory either. In August, a massive fire in Guangzhou involved 3 cars and electric bikes, adding to a growing list of at least 11 spontaneous EV fires in the area recently. It's no wonder hotels are being cautious. One 5-star hotel in Xinjiang now tells EV drivers to park far from the building. Their security manager explained it's just not safe to have EVs in the garage. While electric cars might represent the future, there's still a lot to figure out when it comes to safety. Now let's talk about underground parking garages, a nightmare scenario for EV fires. Think about it. You're in a confined space with poor ventilation, limited firefighter access, and the risk of toxic smoke spreading fast. On top of that, a fire can weaken the building's structure. It's a recipe for disaster. This isn't just a worst-case scenario either. Back in August, there was a terrifying incident in South Korea when an EV caught fire in an underground parking lot. The blaze damaged over 140 other cars and even knocked out the building's electrical system, leaving residents without power for days. People had to evacuate their homes, all because of one EV fire. The incident shook South Korea, and authorities wasted no time responding. They introduced rules banning EVs charged over 90% from entering underground garages and limited public charging stations to a maximum of 80%. It's clear that while EVs are exciting and futuristic, we're still ironing out some serious kinks. From fire risks to infrastructure challenges, there's a lot to consider as we move toward an electric future. It's not just South Korea raising concerns about EVs. Paris is also considering new safety rules, and they're not messing around. These regulations could get stricter and might even lead to a complete ban on parking EVs in underground garages. Across the Atlantic, New York City is thinking along the same lines. Officials are looking into new safety measures and potential bans, especially in older underground garages built way before EVs were on the radar. Why? Because EVs and underground parking don't mix well. The fire risks are just too high, and until we find better ways to make EVs safer and handle fires, bans might be the only way to avoid a disaster. Now let's shift gears to the US. Specifically Wyoming. It's a state known for its breathtaking landscapes and its oil and gas industry. You might not expect much of an EV debate here, but it's happening. Some Wyoming politicians are even talking about banning or restricting EVs. Before you get too worked up, it's worth noting that no actual laws have been passed yet. Most of this talk is political posturing, but it says a lot about the resistance to EVs in certain parts of the country. Here's the argument. Wyoming's economy depends heavily on oil and gas. Promoting EVs could hurt that industry, which would, in turn, affect the livelihoods of many people in the state. On top of that, EVs aren't exactly practical in Wyoming. The state has long stretches of road, harsh winters, and not nearly enough charging stations. While the proposal to restrict EV sales hasn't gained much traction, it highlights a bigger issue. It's the clash between the old and the new, between the fossil fuel industry and the push for cleaner energy. This debate isn't just happening in Wyoming, it's playing out across the US and around the world. It's a reminder that the road to an electric future is going to have its fair share of bumps. From the Wild West of Wyoming, in Australia, top hospitals are raising concerns about the risks of EV fires, especially in large medical facilities. These hospitals warn that EV fires are hard to control, can spread quickly, and release dangerous gases. In a hospital setting, the risks are even greater. Hospitals care for many patients who may not be able to evacuate quickly in an emergency. The hospitals say that traditional water-based fire suppression systems aren't effective against EV fires and can make things worse by reacting with the chemicals in the batteries. They are calling for better fire suppression technology and improved ventilation systems to handle these types of fires. Until these systems are in place, these hospitals are asking for a ban on EVs in hospital parking lots. While they're not against EVs overall, they emphasize that the safety of patients and staff must come first. Next, we head to Switzerland, famous for its Alps, chocolate, and now, winter restrictions on electric vehicles. That's right, Switzerland, usually a leader in environmental progress, has had to take some unusual steps to manage the energy demands of EVs during winter. Here's the deal. Switzerland imports a lot of electricity from France and Germany. When those countries face energy shortages, Switzerland has to cut back too. To avoid blackouts, the Swiss Federal Council rolled out an energy savings program packed with conservation measures. Some ideas were straightforward, like reducing artificial snow production for ski resorts. But the one that raised eyebrows? Possible restrictions on EV use. Under this plan, EV owners might be limited to essential trips during peak energy demand. It's not a total ban, but it raises questions about EV reliability in countries that rely heavily on imported electricity. It's a clear signal that switching to EVs isn't just about the vehicles themselves. It requires a strong, sustainable energy grid to support them. Norway has been a leader in electric vehicle adoption, but even in this forward-thinking country, EVs are facing some serious challenges, especially in remote cold weather areas. While EVs do great in cities, Norway's harsh winters are a different story. Cold temperatures drain EV batteries faster, which means drivers in rural areas can quickly run out of range. With charging stations spread far apart, long trips in an EV can be not just inconvenient, but dangerous. The risk of getting stuck without enough power in freezing conditions is too high. Because of this, Norwegian authorities have placed limits on EV use in certain areas, encouraging people to stick with regular gasoline cars for longer journeys. This situation shows that even in a country leading the charge on EV adoption, there are practical limitations that need to be addressed. While safety concerns often dominate the conversation about electric vehicles, the real-world practicality of EVs in remote and rural areas is a big problem. In places with long distances between towns and limited charging stations, EVs just don't work as well. This issue is especially noticeable in states like Wyoming and countries like Norway, where vast, unpredictable landscapes and cold weather make EVs less reliable. Charging times can be long, and without more charging stations, it's hard for people in these areas to rely on EVs for their everyday needs. Until there's better infrastructure and more technology to improve range and charging speeds, many people in rural areas are still hesitant to make the switch to electric vehicles. The divide between urban and rural EV adoption is a big challenge to the widespread use of electric vehicles. So, are electric vehicles really ready for the future? The short answer is not just yet. While EVs have a bright future ahead, they still need a lot of work before they're fully ready for everyday use everywhere. They offer great environmental benefits, but their reliability, safety, and practicality need some serious improvement. The future of transportation is likely to be electric, but we're still a long way from universal adoption. What do you think? Do you believe we're ready to fully switch to EVs, or is there still more time and innovation needed? Drop your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps us keep creating great content.